In written testimony, she says Calvin should have served killing Floyd. In Minneapolis, the prospect that a police chief would take the witness stand against a fellow officer is exceedingly rare. But there was the chief of the Minneapolis Police Department on Monday condemning the actions of Terry Calvin. The officer had charged with murdering George Floyd as wrong by every imaginable measure. To continue to apply that level of force to a person pointed out handcuffed behind their back that in no way, shape or form is anything that is by police, said the chief Medaria Aradundo. It is not part of our training, and it is certainly not part of our ethics or our values. The chief's appearance following testimony by two other Minneapolis police officers last week underscores the difficulty that Mr. Calvin and his lawyers will have in persuading the jury that the officer was just doing his job when he pinned Mr. Floyd to the ground with his knee for more than 9 minutes last May. The 9 minutes last May. Chief Arredondo said Mr. Calvin's action might have been reasonable in the first few seconds to get Mr. Floyd under control. But he said once Mr. Floyd had stopped resisting, and certainly once he was distressed and trying to verbalize that, the assault had stopped. The chief said Mr. Calvin violated department policies on rendering medical aid, use of force, neck assent, and de-escalation, a strategy of using non-violent measures to diffuse situations before resorting to violence. Chief Arredondo is the highest-ranking public safety employee to testify against Mr. Calvin, with prosecutors also turning to Genevieve Hansen, an off-duty firefighter who tried to provide medical attention at the scene. LG Richard Zimmerman, the longest-serving officer in the Minneapolis Police Department, and Inspector Kathy Beckwell, who at the time of Mr. Floyd's death was the commander of the training division. The chief's testimony underscores the degree to which law enforcement groups have sought to distance themselves from the death of Mr. Floyd. This was captured on video and prompted condemnation from police officers, chiefs, and unions across the country. Even Mr. Calvin's own union said he should have been fired. Criminal justice experts said the police chief's testimony might open even a tendency on the part of juries to give police officers the benefit of the doubt when they make decisions on the job. Generally, you're thinking that police departments are going to defend their police officers, said David Scott, a visiting professor of law at the University of Minnesota, getting the police chief to come in and say, "This is not what our practices were. These are not our protocols. These are not our standards." I have to think that's got to weigh very heavily on a jury, in terms of them saying, "Okay, I guess he wasn't acting within that area of protected police activity." The prosecution took Chief Arredondo through a painstaking recitation of his career, beginning with where he attended high school, Roosevelt High School in Minneapolis. seeking to establish both his ties to the community and his law enforcement expertise. They had him read copiously from the department manual, demonstrating that the policies within give officers specific factors to consider when deciding whether to use force. Negligence, for example, shall not be used against subjects who are passively resisting, the manual says. Asked that they recall his own involvement in the case, Chief Aratundu said he was at home on May 25 when he was informed that a man had been arrested who was not expected to survive. The chief notified the state agency that investigated police use of force, called the mayor, and went to his office, where he watched footage of the arrest from a city-owned surveillance camera, which had no sound, was taken from a distance and saw the officer from the back. Nothing from the video jumped out at me, he said. But around midnight, he testified on Monday. He heard from a resident who said, "Chief, have you seen the video of your officer choking and killing that man at 38th and Chicago?" It was video taken by a bystander, close up, painfully graphic, and showing the 9.5 minutes that Mr. Calvin had his knee on Mr. Floyd. It spread across the internet, setting off protests over racism and police abuse across Minneapolis and in cities across the country. The chief fired the 4 officers involved the next day and soon referred publicly to the death of Mr. Floyd as a murder. 3 of the officers will be tried at a later date.